In this video, we are going to continue an animation that we started of a monster jumping up into the air using a workflow that is used by many professional animators. In the previous part, we defined the look and design of this monster and came up with the storytelling keys. In this video, we will add some much needed definition to our animation. We will put in some extremes, namely the anticipation and the overshoot, which prepare and catch our motion. Because of these frames, our animation will start to feel less like just lines on a screen and more like we're looking through a window into another world where there is gravity giving a material weight and a physical presence. So let's continue going along the path of a professional animation workflow. An extreme keyframe is the moment where a direction is reversed. If I were to throw a ball and I'm going back into the opposite direction first to throw it there, then the moment where my direction reverses from going back to going forward, that is the extreme. And it's also an anticipation because it's preparing the motion that is about to follow. From a physics standpoint, anticipations give us a longer distance during which force can be applied. If I throw something and I go back for anticipation, I have now a larger distance to apply force, and only then it leaves my hand. It's charged with momentum and will go in that direction. In case of a jump, the coiling up of the character gives us, if we're tracing the hips, this distance during which the legs are pushing the character up. So during this distance, the character is being charged with momentum that pushes them up against gravity. We are going to add our anticipation extreme between the key pose of the character on the ground and the key pose of the character in the air. Because before he's getting into the air, he's first doing the anticipation. We just shift over the exposure and make room for our new drawing. Thankfully, our monster is so simple that hips and legs are just all in this ball down here, and all we need to do is to coil up this ball towards the ground. The most important thing that we have to keep in mind is that we need to stick to the volume. The wrong way to do it would be to keep the ball the same height and just have it grow to the sides, but this would add extra volume. Where would that volume be coming from? We don't want that. So this is wrong. You also cannot just shrink in height and keep the sides the same, because in that case you would lose volume. So that's also wrong. What you have to do is you have to lower the height, and then that volume is going out to the sides. So we shrink in height and grow at the sides. Now, I might be just playing Captain Obvious here, but one of the most defining things about our anticipation is clearly the leaning forward of the body. If we just mark the middle of our character's body, we can clearly see that to prepare for the jump, the head traveled in an arc like this. Most organic life moves in lots of arcs because everything is connected to joints and the way gravity works and how our muscles cushion movements and stuff. It all results in arcs. And here it's kind of obvious that there's this big arc here, but you will see that later on if your animations get more and more complex and you have longer or more complex reference material to study, those arcs might be a lot more hidden and overlooked. So it's good to sharpen your eye to watch out for arcs like this and plan them into your animation process. Anyway, the takeaway here is we have a lean forward, which causes the head to travel down and to the right. And this guides the entire anticipation pose. One thing that I want to bring your attention to is the reversal of the curve in the back. At first we have the back being caved inwards, but when he's bending down, he actually gets a hunched over back that is curved in the other direction. A great tool, not only for beginners, but also for professionals, is to always keep an eye on the line of action. As you can see, these two poses are built around two very different lines of actions, two very different postures, two very different flows of energy. Adding a reversal like this adds contrast to your poses. Having a second pose that is noticeably different than the first pose in that way will stand out more to your viewer. This also means that you should use reversals only for a reason. In this case, the anticipation is very important for our animation because the anticipation gives the character the strength to make that leap into the air. We want this to be clearly seen, and that's why we put in this reversal right here. Aside from the fact that this is something that just would naturally happen when you prepare for a big jump. But we shouldn't put reversals in for every new frame, for every new drawing that we do, because, if you do that, you get like a floppy fish or something. Here's another form of contrast between two poses that I want to show you. As we are leaning forward, the head and actually the whole upper body of the character, I want to pull back the arm. And I want to do that for multiple reasons. First of all, there is physics, there's body mechanics. If we lean forward in a direction, the average mass distribution, the center of gravity, is being shifted outwards of our body. And by moving the arms behind, I also shift that center of gravity again a little bit towards my middle. And this way I get more solid mass distribution. It's easier to hold balance with the center of gravity not going outwards, but pulling it back towards the middle of the body. And the other reason is, once again, just visual contrast, visual detail and interest. It looks interesting to have things moving in two different directions, and it stands out to the viewer, making this anticipation even more of a big thing. Another thing that can be a little bit tricky is to keep the connection of the arms and legs at the right place. In this case, the character is leaning forward, which drops the height of his shoulder because the shoulder is moving to the right and down with the upper body. So there's this notable drop, but then we also have the character reaching behind with the arm, and that pulls the shoulder back to the left. And then another thing I was concerned with, to give a clear silhouette, I would either pull the trident very far into his body, which I did, or have it come out a good portion of his belly line. But things could look very ugly if you mash a lot of details together. Like if the top of the tridents were exactly where his belly line is, like you want to avoid clutter like this if you want something to be clearly visible and readable in a short amount of time. And here you see me flip back and forth between this current frame and the previous one. This way I get a feeling how those poses feel in context, one after the other. And if that reversal flip has the right feeling to it, if I keep the volumes, if I have a nice arc, in this case, I can already see how the head is traveling towards the right. And this is something that you can experience better if you see those two frames in quick succession, rather than just using onion skin, which can overwhelm you if you see the lines of a previous or multiple previous drawings and the next drawings, and then there's just too many lines on the screen. And flipping gives you more of a feeling of going through this motion in time. I have the monster lower its tail just a little bit for two reasons. First of all, this is something that you can observe in certain animals, for example, in cats, when you can see that they start thinking about jumping somewhere. They are getting themselves prepared. This also involves the tail. It's called an intention cue if a body part tells you about what movement somebody or some creature is about to do next. The other reason is just a visual one. I want to get the tail out of the way so I can have the Triforce up there without anything overlapping. It wouldn't be the end of the world if that overlaps. I just really like this extremely clear silhouette. You need to see it this way, that each overlap or shape cutting into another shape creates visual detail that draws the eye. Usually you want the highest visual density to be in the face, so you can have lines overlapping there, lots of lines there, but I try to keep it clear at the periphery of the character so that the viewer's eye is nicely drawn to the right side of the character and the face. But before we continue, one of the best ways to actually make a living and earn money with animation is to create motion designs and logo animations like the one you're seeing right now. If you want to do your first motion design with the completely free software OpenToonz, you can check out my course about how to do this logo animation. It's also on Skillshare, so you can watch it with a free trial, or if you have that membership, it's included. By joining my premium tutorials or getting awesome merch like this mug or this t-shirt, you actually help me to make more free content here on YouTube. All right, enough of this. Let's go on with the tutorial. Next, we create another extreme pose, which sits between the other two storytelling poses. The one where he's at the peak of the jump and the one where he's back on the ground, all proud and settled after the jump. He just came down from the jump, overshoots, and then goes back up. That's a change in direction, overshooting and then coming back up. In some ways, this extreme overshoot looks very similar to the anticipation, because in both cases he's bending forward. But even in the bending, there's a difference. Before, during the anticipation, this was something that the body was coiling up for. So the body was coiling up and the head was following. And now overshoots after jumps tend to be a bit more like there's still so much energy in the upper body and in the head that the head is leading the motion and overshooting. And one thing that is very notable is that the more loose parts, the ears, the tail, floppy parts, but also the arms are still pointing upward into the direction that they came from. That is, of course, because they are dragged behind. We already did a video about this principle of follow through and drag. Watch it and you can learn more about why that happens. But yeah, so the looser parts are being dragged behind and just point more or less straight up into the air. But then I did something interesting with one of the arms. One of the arms is not pointing up into the air, but already on its way down. And this is kind of a placeholder for something called overlap. Overlap means that different body parts overshoot and come to a stop at different points in time. Movement in real life is very complex. So it could be that while the body is still overshooting, the right arm already overshot while the left arm is still being dragged behind. So it's kind of an oversimplification that we're doing only one extreme right now, while in fact later in the animation the extremes will be a bit offset. You know, if you define an extreme as the point where a change in direction occurs, that can come at a different time for different body parts. But for now, we are simplifying it and saying, okay, we only have that one extreme pose that we hit, and then we go back from it. But we will worry about this overlap offset later. For now, we just need one very cool overshooting, trying to catch the body after a jump pose. And that concludes our pass through the extreme keyframes. Isn't it amazing how tangible it's already starting to feel just by having one frame where the character is preparing to fight gravity and another frame where the character is catching gravity having pulled him down so strongly. just those 2 keyframes added so much physical believability. And now I have to say thank you to those wonderful people who are my supporters on Patreon. Thank you so very much. Thanks to you, I can make tutorials like this one here on YouTube and put them up for free. If you want to support me to make more content like this, you can join them on Patreon. By joining the group mentoring tier, you get access to a group mentoring session every single month. Every single month, you can bring whatever you're currently working on. It can be just a story idea. It can be an animatic, a storyboard, animation, work in progress animation. And I can give you tips and tricks on how to make it even better. I'll annotate, draw over your work. Sometimes we'll have guest mentors who will share their opinion. And also, if you have any questions about art and animation and making a career out of this, then you can just ask away and we will discuss it in the group. So if you are serious about wanting to improve your work and your skills, then you're invited to join the group mentoring on Patreon. In any case, thank you so very much for watching. In the next video, we're going to tackle what's happening in the middle of the motions. We're going to have a look at breakdowns. Hope to see you there.